Thank you for tuning in to the Natty News Daily podcast. This episode is brought to you in part by our sponsor, Core Nutritionals. You can check out corenutritionals.com for all your supplement needs and use code Natty News Daily at checkout to save 20%. Enjoy the episode.
All right, guys, welcome back to the latest episode of the Natty News Daily podcast. I was going to try and throw a number out, but I have no idea what number we're at this point.
We're close to 145, something like that. I think
it feels like a lot.
Right around there. We might be at 150 soon. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, there we go. So Dan and I know Leroy this week, and we are joined by Jaime Filer, who is OCB Physique Pro, well-established coach, advocate. She's just a character in her own right, and has a great history with just competitive, I think a lot of different competitive endeavors. So we're going to dive into her background today and just see where this conversation leads us. So I'm going to turn it right over to you, Jaime. Tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Oh my gosh, where do I even begin? I don't think I've ever been introduced as a character before, first and foremost, but I'm flattered. I love it, right? There's a first time for everything. So I'm totally cool with that intro. I am 35, grew up in Toronto, Ontario. So my bodybuilding career kind of began there. I actually had to travel to Syracuse, Rochester, and Buffalo because the bodybuilding scene in Toronto only included the WBFF and Fame. So it was all very much either straight bodybuilding or pageantry. That was it. Men's bodybuilding too, not women's bodybuilding. So if I wanted to get a taste of bodybuilding as an 18-year-old, I would take the Greyhound bus from Toronto, Ontario to Buffalo, New York, Syracuse, Rochester, where all of the NGA shows were.
So I did NGA at the time.
Pardon?
It was NGA at the time.
It was, yeah. Yep. It was the NGA, and it was called the Can-Am Classic because they knew that all of the Canadians were going to travel to Buffalo at the, because we didn't have anything in Canada.
Is that the same show that the NMA runs now? Or is that?
So they've different feds, same show. Yeah. And which is kind of goes to show how much the landscape has changed since you started, right? Because NGA is no longer up in this area. The NFF, I think, has that show.
NMA, because Leroy competed it. Yeah, NMA,
And then OCB, INBF, ANBF's here now. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Massive. And I'm so happy with how it's grown. But also, yes, to your point about certain federations growing and the landscape changing. Back when I competed, there was no physique, not even in the IFBB, right? Let alone natural organizations. There was no bikini. It was figure and fitness only. So that was it. So I had to compete as a junior women's, like a teen or junior women's bodybuilder. And I was very frequently the only one in my category, but I was absolutely in love with the sport. So it's how I went from an 18-year-old junior bodybuilder to a 35-year-old physique pro.
Yeah. But I feel like there was a lot in between there, right? So dabbling with some CrossFit and some more functional training, and let's kind of go along that pathway a little bit and see where it took you from those early days.
Sure. So what got me into bodybuilding in the first place was my eating disorder, and I'm super open and forthcoming about it. I started my first diet at 11. It reached its apex around 15, 16. I was hospitalized 3 times in the span of about 2 years. Once as an inpatient for 40 days, once as an outpatient for 2 months. And then the following year, I had to be put on kidney dialysis for 72 hours because I essentially shut myself down. After my parents put me in the inpatient in Sick Kids in Toronto, Ontario, I got so angry with them, I decided I was going to get a hell of a lot worse before I got better. But it's also what led me to bodybuilding. I had body dysmorphia at the time, as a lot of both competitors and people with eating disorders do, obviously. But what I saw in the mirror wasn't someone who was overweight. It was never like I saw myself as fat. In fact, I saw myself as shredded as I was. We're talking DEXA scanned at 4.55% was my walking around. And that's not to brag. This isn't like, hey, look at me. No. I was quite ill. But I thought I looked like Lila Brada. I thought I just looked like one of those smaller, more, I still thought I was 4.5%, but at 200 pounds rather than 98. I remember I picked up, I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember Muscle Media 2000. It was put on by Bill Phillips and it's a magazine. Bill Phillips and his brother Sean started it. EAS supplements, they're also those guys. Okay. So I would see these smaller physiques, even ones like Bob Paris. I thought I was a men's classic physique competitor. Let's just put it that way. That's it. I just thought I had, thought I had what it took to be a women's bodybuilder, but it turns out I didn't. One of the judges after my last show in 2005 said, "Miss Filer, with all due respect, you look like you belong in the hospital, not on stage." And the judges and I would not like to see you on stage again until you are well and healthy, because we care about you.
Wow.
That was my wake-up call. And to me, the sport of bodybuilding was more important than the eating disorder. Because of course I recognized that I had it. And I said, okay, so if I want a future in this sport, I have to recover. That's it. So that's what led me down the path, to obviously get healthy, but really turn this into more than just something I did for fun, but something I wanted to get my pro card in.
So was that a challenge to add weight from there? I'm sure it was.
Oh God, Dan. Yeah. Psychologically, it was a challenge because again, it's very hard to retrain yourself when you think you're Jay Cutler, but someone's like, no, you're literally the 98-pound weakling from the advertisement. And you look like you could be snapped in two. So you're like, fuck, like so what you're telling me is that what I see in the mirror is lying to me? How am I ever supposed to trust it again? And then of course, physiologically, because I mean, to this day, I am not convinced that my hunger hormones are where they're supposed to be. I can go on a full day bender and consume easily 10 to 12,000 calories, or I can get fully consumed and be in flow with work and it'll be 5 p.m. and should probably eat something. So it was hard when you have to train your body to eat on a clock, because again, literally everything around you is lying to you, from your hormones about when you're hungry and you're full to what the mirror is telling you that you look like.
Was that your solution? You went very regimented with like meal plan type approach and like I eat at these times. Was that what worked for you, or?
I had to. Yeah. So, well, the first strategy was reducing all movement, because number one, I wanted to get my love for it back. I was waking up in the middle of the night and doing cardio. I was skipping classes in high school and university to do cardio. I was hitting the gym twice a day, using the Arnold Encyclopedia, AM, PM, like super high volume, stupid amount of sets. Pretty much every meal was just protein powder. So again, all of this had to be retrained out of me. So we stopped all 2-a-days and we stopped all cardio. It was 3 days a week, full body weight training. So
and you said were you working with a coach at the time?
I was working with a therapist.
With a therapist, okay.
No, my parents absolutely would not have hired a coach for me, but I was on the bodybuilding forums, like from 2003, 4, all the way through till, I don't actually know if they're still popular, but I would say from the time I was 18, until 2005 until maybe 2010. So I was getting advice. I was also a Civation athlete. So I was coming clean to Mark, Derek, Lane, Tommy about where I was at. And they were definitely helping me work through it. Again, they took me under their wing because they knew I was recovering. So, I mean, you guys know bodybuilding is a team sport. Yeah, it's only me on stage, but you have a team behind you. You've got significant others. You have maybe supportive parents, hopefully friends. And then if you're affiliated with a supplement company or a clothing company, they should definitely be in your corner. So that was my we.
Yeah, no, it's great that you had that community at that time, because had you not, I hate to think of what could have happened, right? Even with the bodybuilding forums at that time, right? Like the internet that we know now is a pretty brutal place, but from everything I've heard, because I actually wasn't involved with them, I kind of came in like after they were already dead. Seems like, a true community, right? Of people that were actually trying to educate each other. It might not have been the best education, but a community in its own right.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, I mean, I know that people talk about the golden era of bodybuilding being in, the 60s and 70s, but to me, the golden era of the internet was the bodybuilding forums, because it was it was before 3DMJ was a thing and they were just coming together. And it was back when Brian Whitaker was at his absolute peak and Civation still included Lane and Mark Lobliner. Like, to me, that was just, I hate to get nostalgic because I'm very much, rooted and grounded in the present. And this generation of bodybuilders and coaches blow my mind every single day. But to your point, James, there was nothing like the actual camaraderie of the bodybuilding forums at that time.
Yeah. Very much a splintered environment right now compared to seemingly what it was then. And that's, outside looking in because it wasn't there, obviously. But no.
It's also with all the different natty federations as well. And again, I love the fact that they've helped expand the sport. But before, essentially the NGA and the WMBF, to me, were it. That was it, right? Like, and it was so much easier to get to shows as well. So if you wanted to see your friends or guys like Clement Yearwood, Brian Whitaker, Alberto Nunez, you already knew what shows they were going to be at because there were only so many they could be at,
Yeah. And that's a whole, we've done all sorts of episodes on that one, and we could still go. Every athlete, has their own opinion, and that can turn into a doozy. But
sure.
No, I like the idea of less is more that you adopted, right? And you had to, right? Because you were doing the most, like physically could not do more. But I think that's a message that even people that aren't anywhere near the extreme that you were at can learn from. And I think it's something common where I get a younger athlete in and they're wanting to work out, 5-6 days a week. And one of the first things I do, even with experienced athletes, is no, we're doing 4. What can you do with 4 days so that you can recover better, so that you can push yourself harder, right?
Yeah.
And if we then want to add that 5th after they've shown their work capacity, maybe we'll do that. But yeah, absolutely, less is more with this sport, I think.
Totally. And same thing, deloads, right? How many coaches give their athletes deloads? How many coaches should give their athletes deloads? Some of my clients see their biggest drops in weight and their biggest increases in energy when they pull back to 50% or just go, increase their steps from 10 to 12 and stay out of the gym completely for a week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And all, there's so many different strategies for the fatigue management now. And I think it's becoming more well accepted. But yeah, definitely interesting. So you went to the 3-day a week. You pulled back on the activity. What's kind of the steps from there? What kind of success did you see? What new roadblocks did you find?
Yeah. So what did I do? All right. Okay. So I got myself from 95 pounds to about 140 by myself, from 2005 to 2008. That was my recovery period. So it took me about 3 years. Touch wood, I've not relapsed, not regressed once, have not had an episode where I felt myself starting to slip. So 2008, figured I was recovered, hired Derek from the Civation team and said, I'm ready to prep again. And he's like, yeah? And I was like, yeah, I promise, I'm good. And he's like, okay. So at the time, Civation had, it's called the Carbohydrate Haters Anonymous ebook. And it was essentially 2.5 days of 0 carbs. And then on the 3rd day, your technically 18th meal. So if you went like 6 meals, your 18th meal in a 3-day period was a huge bowl of oatmeal with raisins, Splenda, almonds, something else. So he put me on that for about 12 weeks. I dropped about 10 pounds. I got on stage with the IDFA in Toronto, in women's bodybuilding, placed 4th out of 5th, absolutely shattered my ego because, again, I saw my photos in 2008 compared to my 2005 photos. And I was like, oh my God, such a fatty. What a disaster. You're actually the worst human. Don't get on stage ever again. So I ate myself from 135 to 180. Straight binge eating disorder, went the complete opposite direction, right? Seafood diet. So 0 cardio, maybe I weight trained. I don't even remember. I blocked a large chunk of that period of my life out. 0 self-esteem whatsoever. The only pride I had was that I had gotten, I'd finished my kinesiology degree. I was really proud of the education I was getting, and happy with my clients' progress online, right? Happy that I could still help people from behind a computer on the bodybuilding.com forums because I didn't want them to look at me in real life. Mm-hmm. So it took me about 2 years I got myself down about 10 pounds. And then I hired Alberto Nunez, and we worked together for 2 years, and he put me on stage again in 2012. And he taught me macros because Derek was all meal plan. I mean, at the time, so many things were, right? Like, again, macros were just another one of those changing landscapes. Macros weren't popular in 2005. I don't know. I don't remember specifically when kind of Lane or rather Dr. Joe introduced them, but the only option we had was, which probably contributed to my eating disorder as well, because I was restricted from so many different foods. But yeah, okay. So 2008, binge eating disorder, 2010, back to normal, hired Alberto. He got me on stage. I think I placed like second. I was starting to do a little bit better. And now I understood the on season, off season. Now I understood that number one, you couldn't maintain 5% body fat year round, not healthy. But I also understood that you didn't have to get up to 180 just to look good at 140, right? There's this happy medium where you can take pride in your appearance, but not be a gluttonous pig, right? Dirty bulking, no dirty bulking. And then I consider I always say I treated it like the Olympics. I competed in 2008, 2012, 2016. And the 2012 and 2016 were with Alberto, and they were some of the fondest memories I've ever had, because he treated me like a human, not just like a robot. He knew where I'd come from. He knew what my limitations were. He knew when I could be pushed and when I had to be pulled back. And then in the off season, he taught me what it meant to intuitively eat, which was the first time I'd ever heard that phrase. Because I got off stage and he's like, okay, tomorrow, here's what I want you eating. This week, here are the macros I want. And then the next week, you're going to track every day but Saturday. And then in 2 weeks from now, you're going to track every day but Tuesday and Saturday. And he slowly but surely weaned me off macros until I could just maintain 145. And that was life. And I'll always, forever be eternally grateful that he introduced me to macros, but also the other side of it, that was essentially listen to your body, feed it when it's hungry. When you're full, stop, or when you get to whatever, like 80 to 90% full, stop, and life will be okay.
Do you remember in that structure of him like educating you through that, were like certain rules, you can, 4 protein feedings a day, 3 vegetables a day, like anything like that? Or was it just kind of like eat the way you think you should eat on those untracked days?
I think it was essentially that. It was eat like a responsible adult, but also you understand serving sizes, right? You've been tracking your macros long enough to know what rice looks like, to know what sweet potato looks like. You've been an adult long enough to know what a vegetable is, and that the majority of your carbs should come from fruits and vegetables. So have at it. But he also said, keep in mind your background. You cannot deny yourself if you have a craving, because you will end up binging on it.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I think that's one of the hardest things to teach people if they come from this, and normally when I see it is it's someone who doesn't come from a fitness background, is getting into competing for the first time, and almost out of necessity, you have to go the meal plan route, because if you give them macros, they have no idea what to do with.
Totally.
So you either take the long period of time to teach them the macros, or you just say, trust me, give me some foods that you like to eat and I'm going to build something for you.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, because I was working a cookie booth at a bodybuilding show yesterday, the Florida State Naturals, the one where all the pros from any
I heard that was a sweet show.
Oh my God, it was incredible. We could do an entire podcast just on that one. I mean, again, because we're talking the top pros from the OCB, the WMBF, the NGA, the IPE, everywhere, just coming together, which is so beautiful. So beautiful that we're not right in our individual silos. Anyway, so they are only familiar with CrossFit because they've only been to CrossFit competitions. So to see this world, first of all, they did significantly better at a bodybuilding show that they did at a CrossFit competition. They're like, Jaime, why do the bodybuilders need 5 cookies at one time? Why do they need, because they were also getting pre-orders of like 8 and 12 cookies. And they're like, CrossFitters don't do that. I'm like, right. So number one, CrossFitters can have cookies every day. Like right now in my off season, burning everything, doing CrossFit, I could have one of those Instagram worthy cookies or half of one every day. So I don't need to buy 8 at a time, right? I can also eat whatever. But bodybuilders are regimented. The other thing that I told him is you have to be careful because what you see, right? Because people would approach and they would have a cake, they'd have a cinnamon bun, and then they'd be buying 2 cookies. And I said, that's what we called stockpiling. This is an unhealthy behavior that a bodybuilder is notorious for, because what that is going to lead to is the most epic binge. And while they won't recognize it as disordered eating behavior, that's exactly what that is, right? Because there's no need for a human being to consume that. I get it. You're hungry. You've been hungry for 24 weeks. But if you saw you doing that, would you approve that behavior from like a psychological perspective, not a physiological one? So I just thought that was so interesting. And again, it brought me back to Alberto telling me, like, if you have a Pop-Tart, have a Pop-Tart. Because if you don't, and you hold that in for 10 weeks, you're going to end up eating 3 boxes the next time you have one.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And it's odd how that has become such in certain camps, certain coaching circles, or even athletes, just that's what we do, right? We buy all these fun foods for after the show and we just like go crazy where
Yeah.
I mean, I did it my first 2 shows. I had some ridiculous ones. Dan's heard me talk about them where I am ashamed. But I think the last time I did it was probably, what year was that? 2019. And I woke up. So day after the show, I was on my own at that point. I had driven 3 hours back from the show. My wife hadn't moved into our new home yet. She was away. So I just ate. Like I had all these plans. Oh, I'm going to go to the beach. I'm going to like be fun, all this. I just sat inside and ate for like 6 hours. Woke up the next morning still full, but there was ice cream in the freezer. And I was like, I got to finish that, right? Like I've started it. So like, let's just keep being a disgusting human being. And that was fine, right? Because, I'm a bodybuilder. That's what we do after the show. Until you realize like, this is not healthy. This is not healthy from a lot of different perspectives. So yeah, it's odd.
Yeah, I've eaten like an asshole after shows. So
Right.
I think we all have. I think we all have at a certain point, but then you eventually learn like this is not conducive to anything, and I feel terrible, right? Like it's good for an hour, and then I'm just miserable.
Yeah.
100%.
And at least for me, it settles down after like 6 weeks. I'm like, okay, no. And now I'm force feeding. So
yeah, now you're the opposite end.
Now I'm like, I don't even want to eat all this.
Yeah, I know the peak of the off season is tough, right? It gets it. And you're like I've justified it. Like if I'm on my previous coach got me up to like 2,800, 3,000 calories at maintenance. And I said, it's so hard to get it in unless I'm eating Pop-Tarts. And he's like, that is absolutely not an excuse. And that's going to get you in trouble going forward. The other thing that I mentioned, and again, I'm not, obviously I hold a hand, or I have a foot in both camps, the CrossFit and the bodybuilding, but say I were to have that half cookie, right? That Instagram cookie as a bodybuilder, the next day, I would have no problem going into the gym, hitting 3 sets of bench, cable flies, and push-ups, right? And then maybe triceps, right? If I'm doing push day, not a problem, no problem at all. As a CrossFitter, I would second guess that choice because I said, wait a second, tomorrow's workout is 27 calorie row followed by 27 handstand push-ups. Then the same thing at 21 reps, 16 reps, 15 reps, and 9 reps. Do I really want to be doing push-ups upside down with half an 800 calorie cookie? I'm absolutely not. So there's also this, I can get away with eating whatever because no one's going to see me without a shirt until next year or 18 or 24 months from now. But as a CrossFitter, you're also thinking, is that ideal for my performance? And it makes you not necessarily eat like an asshole the 6 weeks after a CrossFit competition versus after a bodybuilding competition. It's like fair game till 16 weeks out for my next show.
Yeah. Yeah. And justify, right? Like, I'm just eating big to get big because we got to get big. And
that's it. Yeah.
Oh, the traditions are fun.
Right. Yeah.
But you're absolutely right with the performance, right? I mean, it doesn't take much to do a preacher curl, performance wise. I can probably eat whatever I want and still do okay with that.
Yeah.
Where I did CrossFit for maybe 3 months and I almost hurled, I feel like almost every week. It was just rough. So it takes a lot to hone in that level of intensity for that long. Not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
All right. So where are we at now? We're caught up to, I think you said 2016 with Burville.
2016, yes. So then, of course, I made plans to compete in 2020 because
Yeah,
every
like
4
we all
years.
did.
Perfect year.
I know,
Well,
right? I followed your guys' journey. Right. So all shows were canceled. Thankfully, though, I mean, I live in Florida, which is a state where no rules apply. So the show I was gunning for in December was open by December 2020. And he's like, hey, if you still want to compete in, it was in Pensacola, Florida. He's like, you can. And I was like, no, because I already started eating again. So it's a hard pass. But then my wife is like, hey, I think I'm going to compete in 2021. And that was her first show ever. And she's like, would you be willing to prep with me? Like, would you just want to push your prep to 2021? And I was like, that would be the coolest thing ever. So we did our research and we decided on the OCV. We went to a show. We loved how it was run. We looked at their social media. We looked at the caliber of their athletes because we wanted to make sure that we were competing with the best. She loved their bikini girls. I love their women's physique girls. And we said, hell yeah, let's do it.
which
So,
OCB show was that you,
okay,
you
so
saw?
it was in Florida. Oh, 1 second. I believe it was called the Emerald City Classic. And it was in,
Sounds about right.
yeah, it was near the Panhandle. I totally forget. It was on so Florida looks like an upside down L and it was on the bottom of the L.
The long skinny part. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. I like to
Um,
keep kind of note of which shows are good and well run and put on a
Yeah.
good show. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, obviously. So do we. And the truth is, Dan, there are no bad shows in Florida because of the weather, everyone loves to come here. So, I mean, like you saw, the Florida State Natural was massive. Yenny show, the Tampa Natural, shout out. She had 100 athletes in November of last year. And that's normal. The Captain's Cup, which was in Tampa also, I think they had 70 competitors this year, and it was their first year ever putting on a show. And that was in March too. So people would have been dieting like right at January 1st. So anytime you guys want to come to Florida and compete, you will have quality.
It's easier to diet when it's not 4 foot of snow outside. I'll say that.
Yeah, isn't it? Right? Yeah, because that's conducive to bulking and hibernating. But when it's beach season year round, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we went to I'm going to call it the Emerald City Classic. I'm not convinced that's what it's called, but we loved it. And she decided to compete in the OCB Miami Beach Classic. And that was in October. And I think she beat like 11 other women in her division. She took the overall, she got her crown, she got her OCB pro card. I only had one other woman in my division. So they said, you've won, but you do not qualify for a pro card. So the head judge said, listen, I'm promoting a show in Tampa in 2 weeks. If you can hold your conditioning, I'm convinced I'm going to get 5 women. Bring this package and I think you'll do well. I said, okay, cool. So I held it for another 2 weeks, and then competed in the Tampa show. I beat 4 other women, got my pro card. I mostly did it so that because she did it, I was like, shit, you can't be the only one with a pro card. So by the middle of November, she was officially an OCB bikini pro and I was a women's physique pro. And then in 2022, I took the same package to the WMBF stage to try my hand with them because I saw their caliber of competitors and was like, holy crap. Problem is they don't have women's physique. They have Fit Body, which is women's physique in heels, and they have bodybuilding. And my problem is I'm literally right in the middle. I don't have the Fit Body, which is very similar to figure, but slightly more muscular. And I'm not thick enough to be a bodybuilder. So I won, oh my gosh, it's right here. The Southern Naturals, which took place in Macon, Georgia. So I won that show actually against one of your previous guests, Jane.
Yep.
Yes. So Jane competed she competed in Fit Body, bodybuilding, and bikini. She won bikini, but I beat her in Fit Body. Formidable competitor, absolutely incredible. Went on to do Nancy's Monster Mash. won my division, but there were not enough females for me to get my pro card. I was one female shy of getting it. There were only 4. We needed 5. And then at WMBF Worlds, I absolutely bombed because there is something in the water in Switzerland that I just am not drinking. I was beaten by essentially like a Nordic god, which really, I can't even blame her. She was perfect. I would have, I should have just like knelt down and
Isn't that incredible to see that caliber of athlete, right? Like I haven't competed against anybody, but like we were at Mr. A, we were, you know, we saw Brian Whitaker up close at the Yorton when he competed a couple years ago. Like you turn the corner, or like, you know, Levi, right? Like you see those people and you're like, holy shit, like what is that?
Yeah, 100%. And again, the natural, right? Like, let's emphasize that to look like that, whether you're a male or a female, to be of that caliber and just you're not taking anything is mind blowing.
That's what I remember seeing Jay Wright backstage at Mr. America too, which I think you saw him at Florida, right?
Yeah.
Didn't he win bodybuilding and classic? Yep. I just saw him backstage. I'm like, that dude has so much muscle on him. Like,
yes,
holy hell.
That's the chiropractor, right?
Yeah. Jay Fit.
Oh my God. Insane. Yeah.
It is truly incredible. And I personally find it inspiring. I don't know. I know we talk with so many athletes, and I feel like the people that are truly passionate about the sport see those people and are like more inspired. Where I know you talk to like the Gen Pop and they're like, well, I can't ever do that. Why am I doing what I'm doing? It's like, no, like that's possible. Like may not be possible for me, but that's incredible. And who knows what I could do, because, you know, I guess technically they are the same species as what I am, even though it doesn't seem like it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I get a lot, like people will follow me on Instagram or we'll start working together, and specifically in the goals, they will say, I'm not looking to look like you. And I was like, cool, flattered. But to me, it's okay. So let's say the best of the best, like the natural athletes, the competitors, the pros, they're up here, right? If the Gen Pop is down here, to me, this is a situation of the cliche, shoot for the moon, because even if you miss, you'll land among the stars, right? If you're here and a pro is here, at least shoot for it, because I promise you, you will not be unhappy with the level of conditioning and the level of strength that you achieve by just starting your journey.
Yeah. No, and just the intangible stuff too, like, right, from my medical background, like you're going to probably feel better, you're going to move better, hopefully, you know, better longevity within your life, quality of life, all those different things. So there's so much more besides just the aesthetic of everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the aesthetic is like a side bonus, right? The everything else you mentioned is the main reason people start their journey. And then when you look in the mirror and do a double take, okay, that's the cherry on top.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like those, you know, the emphasis kind of, there's a indirect relationship with age, right? As we get older, we're like, man, I just want to be able to get up off the ground. That'd be cool. I don't care if I have abs anymore.
Yeah. I just want to not be in pain every day in my lower back. Yeah. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. All right. No, but that's funny. I could go on a whole soapbox on that for sure, but I'll reel it in for this podcast. That's a whole different podcast.
So what's up next for you, Jamie, before we close this out?
So glad you asked. So I have 4 CrossFit competitions lined up. That's the other thing, right? We all love competing, right? We love that adrenaline rush. Bodybuilding takes so much out of you. I respect the individuals who can go on a run, right? Like Jane, who can do like 6 shows in a year. That is not my body. That's not my mind. That's not my willpower either. But in CrossFit, my partner, not my wife, my CrossFit partner, we have one competition lined up every month between June and November, and we're stoked for it. And our bodies aren't going to hate us, and we're not going to go on 6-week eating like an asshole benders, right? We're just going to get strong. We're just going to get strong and have fun. So I'm doing, I think, 5 CrossFit competitions this season. And then starting December, I'm going to get ready for, and Katie is going to start her prep as well. We're going to make a run for the Yorton this year. We thought it would be super cute, and we both got on the Yorton stage. So we're probably going to do some spring and summer shows to qualify, and then nothing till North Carolina.
There you go. No, I like that plan. Dan, where are we on time? I know you're watching it.
We're tight.
We're tight. All right. So, Jamie,
good.
if people want to follow your journey, where can they find you? And we always like to leave the episode with some sort of message for your target demographic.
Sure. Yeah. So where you can find me, Instagram, I am at JAIM and then the number 91, Jaime91. And then in terms of a message, man, oh my God,
On the spot.
on the spot, right? I would have to say the truth is leave some of the measures of progress that aren't serving you behind, right? I say progress runs like an elevator. There isn't just one cable bringing that 2-3 ton box up and down, right? There are several different cables attached to it because otherwise that'd be ludicrous and it would snap. You've got your weight, you've got your measurements, you've got the mirror, you've got how clothes fit, you've got compliments from other people, you've got how you feel in your own skin. If it's not your day with the scale, cool, fuck it. Look in the mirror. Look at how your clothes fit. Look at the compliments you're getting from your significant other. If you hate how your clothes fit, that's totally fine. Put your before and afters up to yourself. Look at the progress you've made on the scale. Look at your measurements. So don't just rely on one measure of progress to determine how well you're doing. Remember that progress runs like an elevator.
I love that. That's a perfect way to stop. Yeah. No, guys, if you guys made it through this episode, certainly give Jamie a follow. Follow her journey as she makes it through the CrossFit competitions and then returns to us in the bodybuilding world. And if you like the episode, like, subscribe, follow, all the cool things that we ask you to do, and share the word so we can continue to grow the sport. Thank you guys, and we'll see you in the next one.